A very good afternoon to Hariramji, Sarvesh Chapadia, and all the persons present over here. First of all, I would like to wish everybody a very happy Janmashtami. This is a very auspicious day for all of us. Keeping fasting and then praying in the night, welcoming Lord Krishna. And आज हरिराम जी का नाम भी बड़े अच्छे से याद आ रहा है मुझे कि हरे राम हरे कृष्ण हम लोग बोलते हैं. हरे कृष्ण हम लोग रात में बोलेंगे, अभी हरिराम जी को याद करते हैं. We are into peak of our audit season. I think everybody is geared up with the new income tax portal to file the returns. आज का टॉपिक जो हमने सेलेक्ट किया हुआ है, इट्स कोड ऑफ एथिक्स. Friends, we know that our profession and we ourselves treat us as a very auspicious person of the society where we feel pride in nation building also. We have a value in society, and to upkeep that value, we need to follow some ethics in conducting our profession. There are a lot of guidelines issued by institute where we should be knowing all the guidelines, but somehow we miss out. So we organize these events frequently so that we don't miss on ethical platforms, so that the integrity and the value which we hold towards our profession is always intact. Hariramji has prepared a FAQ on code of ethics where we generally miss out, and I think this session will be very important for all of us. With this, I would request my committee member Sarvesh Chapadia to kindly introduce Hariramji. Over to you, Sarvesh.
Thank you, Naveen Bhaiya. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy Janmashtami to all. I'm Sarvesh, and it gives me immense pleasure to introduce today's speaker, CA Hariram Agarwal, the present treasurer of EIRC ICAI. He is a BCom Honours from St. Xavier's College and a qualified LLB, FCA, FCS, Disha, and has also qualified the IBBI exams. He is the managing partner of HR Agarwal and Associates for the past 22 years. He is presently serving as a chairman of 5 committees, vice chairman of 6 committees, and as an active member of 11 subcommittees of EIRC. He was the former member of Ethical Standard Board of ICAI for the term 2013-14 and has served different committees of EIRC of ICAI and ICSI since 1999. He was nominated as the chairman of ICASA for 1920, and under his leadership, it got the All India Second Best Student Association Award. He is a regular speaker and has spoken in more than 50 workshops, seminars, and study circle meetings on different subjects from time to time. He is the founder, member, and coordinator of reputed CA study circles like Central Kolkata and Vitt Salakar, and CS study circle like Madhya Kolkata. He has also served DTPA, Our Own Views Exchange, Avantika, Bada Bazaar Library, and other professional and social organizations since 1998. He was the convener of Vitt Salakar CS study circle consecutively for 3 years from 2012 to 2015, and under his leadership, the study circle received awards for all these 3 years. He was the deputy convener of Central Kolkata CA Study Circle from 2002 to 2012. He is also actively engaged in a large number of social organizations. We welcome you, Hari sir, and we look forward for a very exciting session from you.
Thank you, Sarvesh. Over to you, Hariramji. The platform is yours now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, convener of our study circle, Naveen ji, and deputy conveners, as well as Sarvesh Chapadia. Very good afternoon to all of you, and a warm wishes for the happy Janmashtami. As at the initial remark, Naveen ji has told that Hari Ram, but in Hari and Ram, the next yug, that is Dwapar Yug of Krishna, is missing. So we wish a happy Janmashtami to all of you, and hope that this Janmashtami will bring happiness throughout the year to all of you. With this remark, I'm starting my deliberation on Code of Ethics. Friends, as we all know, that every professional has its own code of ethics, be it medical, be it engineering, be it any other. So how strongly the members of that profession follows that code of ethics depends on the institute for which they are, of which they are members, and the strictness with which this code of ethics is implemented. In case of CA, we do have Chartered Accountant Act as well as Chartered Accountants Regulation 1988. So with the help of these two legislations, Institute of Chartered Accountant has formed disciplinary committees, and in those disciplinary committees, whatever matters, wherever there is any violation of code of ethics, a disciplinary action is being taken in a judicious manner, so that it is not being violated by others in the road. So friends, the Chartered Accountants Act 1949 has been enacted by the Parliament for the regulation of the profession of CA. And for the purpose of carrying out the object of the Act, the CA Regulation 1988 have been enacted. The Act has two schedules, first schedule and second schedule. The first schedule has 4 parts, part 1, 2, 3, 4. Part 1 is relating to professional misconduct in relation to chartered accountant in practice. Part 2 of first schedule deals with professional misconduct in relation to members of the institute in service. Part 3, professional misconduct in relation to members of the institute generally. And part 4 is other misconduct in relation to the members of the institute generally. So these are the parts covered, 4 parts under first schedule. Similarly, under the second schedule has 3 parts. Part 1 is professional misconduct in relation to chartered accountant in practice, and part 2 of second schedule deals with professional misconduct in relation to members of the institute generally, and the part 3 deals with other misconduct in relation to members of the institute generally. So all these part 1, 2, 3 of schedule 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, both every other things are covered under the code of ethics. So friends, frequently I being a council member, frequently members are asking different questions relating to code of ethics, and most of the time it is found that they want themselves to be secured from any violation thereof. So frequently they are just asking questions friendly, and wherever and whenever in the best manner I try to support them, solve their queries, and on the basis of such questions and queries which have been received from the members, I have selected 100 such queries, and I will be deliberating those frequently asked questions to me, and those are the FAQs. So FAQs on ethical values, FAQ on ethical values, these are ethics. So what is right, what is wrong, and what is depending on certain circumstances. These are the basic 3 directions for the ethics, whether it is right or wrong, or it depends on the circumstances or case to case. So now let us have check our EQ. EQ standing for ethical quotient. So let us check our ethical quotient, how far we are conversant with ethics. So the basic presentation of mine is in the form of question and answer mode, and in the one slide I am putting a question, and the subsequent slide I am just giving an answer to that, and in the meantime there will be a pause of say 10 seconds so that you can conceptualize the tentative answer of that query, right? So that when I'm bringing the next slide, you can compare your EQ, ethical quotient, that how far you are correct, and if wrong, why you are wrong. Okay, so that will be a very interesting and self-interacting process of my presentation. So the first question is whether a professional accountant in public practice may pay or receive a referral fees or commission. Just read the questions again. whether a professional accountant in practice means a CA in practice, whether we can say that CA in practice may pay or receive a referral fees or commission or not. Answer is yes. Answer is yes. That means a CA in practice can pay or receive a referral fees or commission, but it depends. It depends means not in all circumstances. The answer is that it is not prohibited for a member in practice to charge referral fees, being the fees obtained by a member in practice from another member in practice in relation to referring a client to him. So basically 3 limbs to answer, and if all the 3 limbs are okay, yes, then answer is yes. That is, fees obtained by a member in practice, number 1. Number 2 is from another member in practice. So member in practice getting fees or commission from another member in practice in relation to what? In relation to referring a client to him. So if that be there, if all the 3 limbs are there, and if it is fees or commission is being paid, that is ethical, that is acceptable, that can be done, right? Good. Now next question is, can a member in practice render management consultancy and other services? Member in practice, management consultancy, other services, whether yes or no? The answer is yes. The area covered under the management consultancy and other services summarized by the council, and it is contained in this schedules. Whether a member in practice permitted to undertake the management of NRI funds, whether a member in practice is permitted to undertake the management of NRI funds? Answer is no, not permitted. Why? It is not covered under the management consultancy and other services permitted to be rendered by the practicing member of the institute. So it is not permitted. Next is, can a CA provide portfolio management service, that is PMS, as a part of CA practice? I hope that all of you know what is PMS. PMS is a portfolio of equity shares, mutual funds, or other securities which a person is buying or holding, and a chartered accountant is managing that. That is which one to buy, how to buy, accounting for that, payment for that, all these things. That service is called PMS, portfolio management service. So whether a chartered accountant practice can provide a PMS service? The answer is no. Explanation to clause 19 of the management consultancy services expressly means it is expressly debarred the activities of broking, underwriting, and portfolio management. So any member in practice, according to clause 19, cannot do broking, underwriting, and portfolio management. Whether a CA in practice is required to obtain any trade license for practicing. Suppose I am a chartered accountant in practice. So whether HR Agarwal and Associates required to obtain any trade license if I am doing practice? Answer is no. From the standpoint of ICAI, it is not required to obtain any trade license for practicing as a professional. The COP is the only requirement, but to comply if local authority specifies. So as regards the Calcutta Municipal Corporation and a few other local authorities, trade license is necessary for chartered accountant in practice. But in case of few other local authorities, trade license is not required. So please remember that trade license is required for chartered accountant if jurisdiction is Calcutta Municipal Corporation. So that is not the requirement of ICAI, but that is the requirement of local authority. So in addition to COP, we the Calcuttans have to obtain trade license also. Naveen ji, can I just give me a feedback whether the speed is okay, or should I go faster or slower or like that? Is it okay?
It's okay, I would say, sir.
Thank you, sir. So I'm just in the same speed I'm doing. Can a CA in practice work as a collection agent or recovery agent? collection agent or recovery agent. Can a CA in practice do that? No. A CA in practice cannot work as collection agent, but he can do as a recovery consultant, not an agent, but a consultant. Mark the word consultant, which is provided under clause 25 of the MCS. Can a member holding COP entitled to own agricultural land and continue agricultural activity? The meaning thereby that I am Hari Ram Agrawal. So whether I can hold or purchase any agricultural land in my name. Second question is whether I was doing agricultural activity and I have recently obtained certificate of practice. So can I continue the agricultural activity as Hari Ram Agrawal? The answer is yes. Member holding COP can own and hold agricultural land and continue agricultural activity. Fundamental principles which a professional accountant is required to comply. Fundamental principles which a professional accountant is required to comply. These are the following 5 fundamental principles which a CA in practice is required to comply. One is integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. These are the 5 ingredients, 5 pillars on the base of which a chartered accountant is doing practice, and he should follow these 5 principles: integrity, objectivity, professional competence, confidentiality, and professional behavior. So, few more. Whether the statutory auditors consisting of 10 or more members can conduct the branch audit of the same company. Let me explain in a simpler way. HR Agrawal and Associates is having, say, 11 partners, and he has got an audit of a limited company. The company has got branch at Bhubaneswar. So whether HR Agrawal and Associates can conduct the branch audit of the same company which is situated at Bhubaneswar or not, since HR Agrawal and Associates is having 11 partners. The answer is that the council has decided certain self-regulatory measures to ensure healthy growth of profession and equitable flow of professional work. One recommendation of this nature is that branch audits of a company should not be conducted by a statutory auditor consisting of 10 or more members, but should be conducted by the local firms of auditors consisting of less than 10 members. So the branch audit of that particular company, HR Agrawal and Associates cannot do. So who will do? Any chartered accountant in practice who is having office at Bhubaneswar can do that, provided that firm does not have partners, 10 partners, and that has to be less than 10 partners in that firm. So only that firm can do the branch audit of that company. This should not be understood to mean any restriction on the right of the statutory auditors to have access the branch accounts conferred under the Companies Act. Friends, the restrictions may not be applicable in following cases. There are 2 different cases in which such restrictions is not necessary to follow. One is where the accounting records of the branches are maintained at the head office of the company, and where significant operation of the company are carried out at its branch office. So in these 2 cases, a firm of chartered accountant having 10 or more. So I hope it is very clear to all of you. Proceeding next is whether there is any minimum audit fees to be charged by the members of the institute. Is there any restriction that you cannot charge less than that fees, or a minimum fees that you have to charge? Answer is no. There is no mandatory minimum audit fees required to be charged by the members of the institute. Okay, if one member is accepting an assignment at, say, X rupees, another at Y rupees, one at X amount, another is at X plus amount, so can do that. So it depends on the firm to firm, CA to CA, and it is you who can brand yourself that what is the price of your services. It is not the institute who will fix the audit fees. However, there is one recommendatory list of fees which has been prescribed by the institute, that if your office is situated in such area and the nature of work and time consumed by the work is such and such, you can bill to the client of such and such amount. So that is the basis on which we can determine our fees, and that is recommendatory and that is not mandatory. Can a member in practice be a sleeping partner in a family business concern? Sleeping partner in family business concern. So two parts. One is member in practice. He is doing practice also, and he wants to be sleeping partner in the family business concern also. Can he do that? So uh, if we think prima facie, it looks that a member cannot, but the answer is different. Yes, a member in practice can be a sleeping partner in a family business concern, but again there is a but, that there are two conditions. If a member in practice wants to become a sleeping partner in a family business, there are two conditions. Number one is that he takes prior and specific permission from council. Prior and specific permission. Okay, I am HR Agarwal, I am doing COP, and we have got such and such firm, and we want that permission be granted for being a sleeping partner. But institute or the council will put restrictions. What is that? You will not be entitled to do attest function, right? You cannot do attest functions side by side the sleeping partner of family business. But other than attest functions of your COP, you can always do that. Whether members are required to intimate the website address to the institute. Suppose Naveen ji has made a website of his firm. So whether Naveen ji is compulsorily required to intimate the ICI that, okay, this is my website address. Is it required to be intimated? Answer is no. Members are not required to intimate the website address to the institute, but websites has to comply with the guidelines issued by the institute while framing or at the time of developing this website. The member in practice must follow the guideline issued by the institute in relation to the website development. Can a member act as a tax auditor and internal auditor of the entity? Meaning thereby that suppose I have been appointed as tax auditor, and the same client wants to appoint me internal auditor of the same entity also. So can I accept the second assignment also? Tax auditor and internal auditor, both. Answer is no. The council has decided that an internal auditor of an assessee, whether working with the organization or an independently practicing CA, individual or firm, cannot be appointed as tax auditor, and vice versa. Member holding COP who is an employee in a CA firm can be enrolled as GST practitioner. Can be enrolled as GST practitioner. Let me simplify it. Mr. Y is holding COP, and Mr. Y is an employee of HR Agarwal and Associates. So can Mr. Y be enrolled as GST practitioner? Answer is yes. He can enroll as GST practitioner. This is not an attest function, subject to contractual obligation, if any, with the employer. If the employer is not permitting, he cannot do that. If employer is permitting, he can do that. So that is the basic idea we have. Next is whether it is permissible for a member to mention himself as a GST consultant. That was a matter. The question in question number 14 was related to employee of a CA firm. Now it is member himself, whether a member himself mention himself as a GST consultant or not. No. In terms of the provision of clause 7 of the first schedule, it is not permissible for a member to mention himself as GST consultant. Can a CA in practice allow any person to practice in his name as chartered accountant? That can I allow Rameshji to practice as Hari Ram Agrawal or HR Agrawal and Associates? Answer is no. Clause 1 of part 1 of first schedule prohibits a CA in practice to allow any person to practice in his name as CA. But he can do that under certain circumstances. When such person is also a CA in practice and is in partnership with the CA firm. In that case, he can use the name, otherwise not. Whether a practicing CA can be a partner or designated partner in a LLP, which is not doing professional work, but is in the commercial activities. Can a CA in practice become partner in LLP, the LLP which is not doing professional work? No. As per paragraph 2 of first schedule, a practicing chartered accountant cannot be a partner or designated partner in a LLP, which is not doing professional work, but is in the commercial activities. So, commercial activity, a CA cannot become partner in that. The earlier question was related to family business, and this question is not related to family business, but in general commercial activity doing a partnership firm. So whether he can be a partner in that or not, he cannot be. Can a member in practice hold a kiosk for providing certain government services in areas where online access is not available? Can a member in practice hold a kiosk for providing certain government services in areas where online access is not available? Suppose in the extreme corner of Northeast, there is a chartered accountant in practice and certain government services, online services are there, and the general public is unable to get those services availed. So can a CA in practice put a kiosk and provide those services? The answer is a member in practice can provide such service through kiosk if the services provided are professional service of a practicing CA permitted under the Act. He can do only those activities which are permitted under the CA Act to do under this kiosk. Whether a member in practice can act as mediator, whether a member in practice can act as a mediator. So that is a question. The answer is yes. A member in practice can act as a mediator, since acting as a mediator would be deemed to be covered under meaning of arbitrator. So the meaning thereby that a CA can become an arbitrator, and mediator is a part of arbitrator. So the members are permitted under CA regulation 191. Member in service can represent before the income tax authorities on behalf of other employees, colleagues of the company. So suppose I am doing service, not holding COP, doing service. So whether I can represent the person who is my colleague in the same company or employee of the company, can I represent him with the income tax authorities? Suppose some scrutiny cases of my colleague is coming. So can I appear on his behalf as a representative? The answer is a member in service can appear as tax representative before tax authorities on behalf of an employer only. Suppose he is doing the service with X Limited. So for and on behalf of X Limited, he can appear for X Limited as a representative, but not as a representative of his employees or colleagues. If he is doing that, that is his violating the code. Whether a member in practice can hold custom broker license? No. In terms of the provision of code of ethics, it is not permitted for the member in practice to hold custom broker license. Therefore, he cannot do the practice of custom broking license. Can a QR, quick response code on his visiting cards, facilitating easy access to information? Friends, now it has become a new technological trend that in the visiting card, instead of putting all the information, name, address, phone number, mobile number, office address, residence address, and qualification and others, etc. So instead of mentioning all those, people are getting QR printed on this visiting card, and if you read that QR, all the informations are visible and readable. So can a member in practice print QR code on his visiting cards, facilitating easy access for information? Answer is yes. Printing of QR code on visiting card is permissible, provided it does not contain any information that is not otherwise permissible to be printed on the visiting card. So if certain information are restricted that this cannot be printed on the visiting card, you cannot print those information. You cannot contain those information in QR code. Next is, can a member in practice render management consultancy and other services? Answer is yes. The areas are defined under this list. Whether a CA firm can be registered with the institute as limited liability partnership? Yes. But the CA Act definition of the firm as amended can become a partner in LLP. Whether member holding COP will be deemed to be in practice even if he is not serving any clients. Let me explain it. Suppose I am holding a COP and I am pursuing the professional practice, but at present, as on date, I am not having a single client. I am not having a single client, so I'm not serving any client as on date, but I am having COP. So whether I will be deemed to be in practice, the answer is yes. A member is deemed to be in practice not only when he is actually engaged in the practice of accountancy, but also when he offers to render accounting services, whether or not he is in fact does so. When he is asking the people that I am doing this job, this service, this professional service, and he is not actually serving at that time, then even in that case, he will be deemed to be in practice. Whether messaging application can be, means SMS, whether a SMS can be used by a member in practice to send message to make people aware about their new practice and mention the services provided there. Suppose I have started my new practice or started my new service. So whether I can send n number of messages to XYZ, ABCD, whosoever I know or I get the contacts, can I send the SMS to all those persons? The answer is no. It is not permissible to use SMS to send message to make people aware about their new practice and the services provided therein. Can a CN practice allow any person to practice in his name with chartered accountant? Answer is no. Can a member share profits with the widow of the deceased partner? Can a member share profits with the widows of his deceased partner? Suppose there is a firm, ABC and company, and Mr. A and Mr. B and Mr. C, there are 3 partners in the partnership firm. Let Mr. A expired due to Corona, say. So whether the wife of Mr. A will be entitled or can get the share of profit from the firm in which his husband, Mr. A, was partner? Yes. This yes is there, but there are certain riders, certain limitations, certain conditions which have to be followed for getting the remuneration, fees, or otherwise. What are those? Let us see. When there are two or more partners, one of them dies. Widow of the deceased partner can continue to receive a share of profit of the firm. A legal representative, say widow of a deceased partner, would be entitled to share the profits only where the partnership agreement contains a provision that on the death of the partner, his widow or legal representative would be entitled to such payment by way of sharing of fees or otherwise for the specified period. So what are the conditions? Number one condition, that is the widow can get it, widow or any legal representative can get this amount, provided this provision has contained in the partnership deed which was prevailing at the time of death of the partner. If that provision is there in the partnership deed, the widow can share fees or otherwise. But the sharing of fees or otherwise will not be for endless period or endless number of years. It has to be for the specified period. So the provision wherever it has been made that in the partnership that widow of the partner will be getting such and such remuneration for such and such period calculated on such and such basis. That specifications must be there. Moreover, the partnership deed can provide the provision of such fees to one partner, widow of one partner, and may not allow or may not provide for the payment of such fees to other partner due to obvious reasons. Can a member in practice can respond tenders, advertisements, and circulars? Can a member in practice respond to tenders, advertisements, and circulars? Answer is yes. It is permitted as per provision 2 of class 6 of a schedule. According to this should be read with council guideline dated 7th April 16, which is appearing in appendix J of volume 2 of Code of Ethics. It means, let us put it in simpler way, that we the chartered accountant practice can respond to tenders, advertisements, and circulars, provided certain conditions, guidelines are there for doing so. Can a CA practice solicit professional work by making roving inquiries? So roving inquiries means there is no fixed direction to whom you are asking. So say I, Hariram Agarwal, went to the top floor of say Commerce House and started from office 1, room number 1, that okay, I'm a chartered accountant, I'm doing the professional work. If you do have any professional work, please provide me the professional work. So that is a sort of roving inquiries. So if I'm doing that to n number of persons, means even to the unknown persons also, and at random. So whether can a chartered accountant practice solicit professional work by making roving inquiries? The answer is no. It is not permissible for the member to address letters, emails, circular to persons who are likely to require services of CA. It would tantamount to advertisement as per paragraph 2. So I hope this is clear. Can a CA in practice accept original professional work emanating from the client introduced to him by another member? Way. Suppose Naveen ji is a good friend of mine. Okay, and he wants to support me in some way. So he has referred and he has introduced me to one of his clients. New professional work generated by the client referred by Navinji. Can I do that? Can I accept the work, professional work offered by the client which has been introduced by Navinji to me? Answer is no. The explanation, let us see the explanation for that. The Code of Ethics prescribes that a member should not accept the original professional work emanating from client introduced to him by another member, right? So he cannot. Moreover, if any professional work of such client comes to him directly, it should be his duty to ask the client that he should come through the other member. Sorry. If any professional work of such client comes to me directly, it is my duty to ask the client that he should come through Navinji and not give the work directly to me. So it will be prerogative of Navinji to whether give me that work or can accept that work. And if the client says that okay, I will be getting that work done by HR Agrawal only, so that that confirmation should be made by Navinji only. Then only I can accept that professional work. If I'm not following that principle, it means I'm breaking this code of ethics. Can a CA in practice or CA firm post the particulars on a website? Answer is yes. The council has approved the detailed guideline for posting the particulars on website by CA in practice and firms of CA in practice. Yes, can do that. Whether website of a chartered accountant can provide a link to the website of ICAI, its any of the 5 regional councils or any of the 164 branches to the website and also to the websites of government departments, regulatory authorities, and other professional bodies. Can I provide a link of all these in the website of HR Agrawal and Associates? Yes, it is permitted that website may provide link to the website of ICAI, its regional councils, branches, websites of government department, regulatory authorities, and other professional bodies. I can always mention that. Can a member put up his photograph on his website? Yes. Paragraph 3.3.7 of the Council Guideline for Establishment 2008, appearing in Volume 2 of Code of Ethics, provides that display of passport style photograph is permitted. So the photograph of full size or postcard size is not permitted. So what is permitted? Only passport size photo. A member or CA firm print his or its vision and values behind the visiting card. Suppose I am getting printed my visiting card. So front side my details are there, and on the back side, say back side is empty. So one good idea comes to my mind that okay, why not I get printed the vision and values behind the visiting card? The answer is no. Since such printing of vision and values behind the visiting card may result in solicitation and violation of the provisions of clause 6 of part 1 of the first schedule. So vision and values cannot be printed on the back side of the visiting card. Practice or date of establishment on the letterheads and other professional documents. Can I do that? Can I do that? The date of setting up the HR Agrawal and Associate, set up in or established in such and such year or date. Can I mention that? The answer is no. Council directions under paragraph 2 of first schedule appearing in volume 2 of Code of Ethics prescribes that the date of setting up of the firm on the letterheads and the professional documents, etc., should not be mentioned. However, in the website, year of establishment can be given. So only the website is authorized means to communicate this date of establishment of the organization. Whether a CA in practice can use the designation corporate lawyer? The answer is no. Can a chartered accountant practice firm give advertisement in press? No. Normally it cannot do. However, members in practice may advertise the services setting out the service provided by him or his firm and particulars of his firm through a write-up subject to advertisement guideline issued by the council. So next is if a member in practice, if a member is a partner in more than one firm. Suppose I am partner in HR Agarwal and Associates. In addition to that, I am also a partner in, say, Agarwal Consultant or partner in SS Agarwal and Associates. So I'm partner in 3 firms, right? So if a member is a partner in more than one firm, is it permissible for me to print the name of all the 3 firms on visiting cards, letterheads, stationery, etc.? Answer is yes. There is no violation of clause 7 of part 1 of schedule. So I can get printed. Whether members of the institute can use common CA logo. Common CA logo. What is a common CA logo? And whether I can use that logo or not? Yes. The common CA logo can be used by all members, whether practice or not. It means members in industry, service, business, anybody can use that logo. Encapsulating the current beliefs, attitudes, and values of the profession, CA logo seeks to enhance the identity of the members. The logo consists of the letters CA with the reverse tick upside down and inside a rounded rectangle with white background. Rounded rectangle and rounded, how it can be? Corners are rounded. A rectangle whose corners are rounded is called rounded rectangle, and the background of that particular rectangle should be white. A related question to that is whether a member put CA logo in his website on the same background color as that of the website, meaning thereby that I am preparing one website and the background of that website is a green color. So can I do that? That background color of that logo is also green? The answer is, as per logo guidelines issued by ICAI in the CA logo, the background color of logo has to be white, which is originally in the institute's logo, irrespective of the background color of the website. Irrespective of color means whatever be the color, it should be white. Can a CA in practice fix a monogram of the institute on the column wall located inside the office or on professional documents? Question once again reading. Can a CA in practice fix monogram of ICAI on any column, wall inside the office or professional document? Answer is no. In view of the council directions under class 7, first schedule to the Act, chartered accountant in practice is not permitted to use or fix a monogram of the institute on the any column or wall located inside the office. Whether the office of a chartered accountant is permitted to go in for ISO certification or other similar certification, ISO. Whether a CA can do ISO certification? Yes. There is no bar. There is no bar for a member to go in for ISO certification or other similar certifications. However, members cannot use the expression like ISO certified on his professional documentation, visiting cards, letterheads, or signboards. So the next question is, if a member has passed any additional course of the ICI, is he permitted to print such qualification on visiting card, letterheads, and other stationery? Member has passed additional course on of ICI, say DISA or one concurrent audit. Is he permitted to print such qualification on visiting cards, letterheads, other stationery, etc.? It is not permissible for a member to mention the name of certificate course of the ICI cleared by him. Suppose few of us are using the words certified concurrent auditor. So what does it mean, certified concurrent auditor? You are just holding a certificate of the course conducted by the ICI. So is that all? So certificate course of ICI he cannot be using. So wherever diploma is awarded by the institute, it can be mentioned in the visiting card like this one. Whether public notice published in the newspaper by a chartered accountant.
Sir, a question, the previous question. Okay, should I
jointly with an advocate in respect of acquisition of land by their client, is it permitted? A CA and advocate jointly publishing notice for acquisition of land by their client. Yes, in terms of the provision of paragraph 3 of Council Guideline for Advertisement, appearing in volume 2 of the Code of Ethics, the public notice published in the newspaper in respect of acquirement of land by their client is permissible. Whether members in practice can practice their photograph on their visiting card. Just think over it. Whether member in practice can print their photograph on their visiting card. Some two members are getting their photograph printed on the visiting card. The answer is no. It is not permissible for the members in practice to print their photograph on the visiting card. What should be sequence or order of designations while a member also uses the designation doctor along with CA? As our VP is there, he is using CA Dr. Devashish Mitra. So what in your opinion, whether CA will come first or whether doctor will come first? Doctor, CA, blah, blah. Can we do that? So what is the answer? A member is free to use the designation doctor along with CA in whichever sequence or order he wants to. So meaning thereby, he can use the word CA Dr. Devashish Mitra, or alternatively also can be used Dr. CA Devashish Mitra. Both are correct and both are permissible. It is your choice which you are accepting. Which designations can be mentioned by a member in practice impaneled as insolvency professional on his visiting card, letterhead, and other communication? So friends, a little bit of that is permitted. Which designation can be mentioned by member in practice impaneled as insolvency professional? What can he do mention therein? A member in practice impaneled as insolvency professional can mention insolvency professional on the visiting cards, letterheads, and other communication, as this is recognized by the central government in terms of clause 7.1 part 1 of first schedule to the act. mention of any others nomenclature, designation, including membership of any IPA is not allowed. Whether a chartered accountant in practice can accept the position as auditor previously held by another chartered accountant without first communicating with him in writing. So very simple question it seems to be, whether a CN practice can accept the position previously held by another chartered accountant without fees, commission, or with him in writing. So what can you do that? No. CN practice cannot accept a position as auditor previously held by another chartered accountant without first communicating with him in writing. So communication in writing from your side before accepting your audit must be there. Whether a CA can accept appointment as an auditor after sending communications to the previous auditor through registered post without acknowledgement due. The answer is no. CA cannot accept an appointment as an auditor after sending communication to the previous auditor through registered post without acknowledgement due, as this may amount to professional misconduct under clause 8. So whether communication with the previous auditor as contemplated is permissible via SMS, whether communication with the previous auditor is contemplated under clause 8 for schedule, that whether it is permissible via messaging application SMS. No. Communication via messaging application SMS is not permissible as an evidence of communication being sent as required under clause 8 of the first schedule. Whether a CA who is appointed as tax auditor for conducting a special audit under Income Tax Act by IT authorities is required to communicate with the statutory auditor. Yes. Council direction appearing in volume 2 of the Code of Ethics prescribes that it would be a healthy practice if a tax auditor appointed for conducting special audit under the Income Tax Act communicates with the members who has conducted the statutory or tax audit. Whether communication necessary in case of statutory audit by nationalized and other banks. The question arises sometimes that the time given to conclude and give the report is minimum, and whether during this minimum period he has to comply with this formality of getting NOC from the previous auditor. The answer is yes. Despite the fact that time is short, this communication cannot be do away with. Clause 8 of a schedule to the Act is equally applicable in case of nationalized and other banks, and also to government agencies. They must communicate. Whether communication by incoming auditor is mandatory with the previous auditor in respect of various audit assignments like the concurrent audit, revenue audit, tax audit, special audit, etc. The answer is yes. The requirements for communicating with the previous auditor would apply to all types of audits: statutory, tax, GST audit, internal audit, concurrent audit, or any other audit. The council has laid down detailed guideline in this regard, and the same are appearing in paragraph 2 to 2.14 under clause 8 of a schedule appearing in volume 2 of the code. Whether a member in practice is allowed to become whole-time director of a company. So friends, there are 2-3 different concepts. One is whole-time director of the company. Second is non-executive director, independent director, or any other mode thereof. So the question is whether a member in practice is allowed to become whole-time director of a company. No, members are not allowed to become whole-time director of a company generally. However, a member in practice may become a managing director or a whole-time director of a buddy corporate subject to the council guideline of corporate form of practice. So suppose I have started corporate form of practice. Then I am also managing director of that company. So in those circumstances, it is permissible. So whether a member can be a director simpliciter of a company. Director simpliciter means generally simply a director who attends the board meeting and AGM, and he has no role to play in day-to-day activities. So a member in practice is permitted generally to be a director simpliciter in a company, provided he is not a managing director or whole-time director and is required only in the board meeting of the company and not paid any remuneration except for attending such board meeting or AGM. Specific permission of the council is not required in this regard. Can the CA working in a firm of a CA hold certificate of practice? Can a CA working in a CA firm hold certificate of practice? Yes. CA working in a firm of CA can hold certificate of practice, but however, with effect from 1/4/2005, he is not entitled to any attached functions. Whether a member in practice owning intellectual property rights of domain names sell these domain names to some entity for earning royalty on the same. Suppose I have come across the case where particular intellectual property can be obtained, and the member in practice owning intellectual property rights, can I sell those one? I say, suppose Hariram. Hariram is a domain name, and so many other people might be asking for the name Hariram. So can I hold such names and later on sell them? No. Since the activity of selling domain name for earning royalty would amount to other business occupation, which is prohibited under clause 2 of us. Whether a member who is the statutory auditor of a company can let out property owned by his HUF to the said company, meaning thereby I am a statutory auditor of company, say Yaks. So can I let out property owned by my HUF to the company? HUF is treated as separate entity for the purposes of assessment. However, since the individual member and the Karta of HUF are practically the same person, such a transaction should be avoided from independence perspective. Whether a member in practice is generally permitted to write script story for a movie. Suppose I got suddenly intuition to write script or story for a movie. Can I do that? Beside, I am holding the certificate of practice. Script or story for a movie may be based on the book written by a member in practice. However, merely writing a script or story for a movie would not fall within the general permission provided under Appendix 9. Such a member would require prior and specific permission from the council in this regard. So the question was, whether a member in practice is generally permitted to write a script, story, or movie. The member would require prior and specific permission of the council in this regard. Whether a member in practice can also practice simultaneously as an actuary. No, he cannot. The members in practice have not been permitted by the council to practice as actuary simultaneously. Whether a member in practice can become financial advisor and receive fees or commission from financial institutions such as mutual fund, insurance companies, and NBFCs. Whether a member in practice can become financial advisor and receive fees commission from the financial institution like mutual fund, insurance, and NBFC companies. The answer is no. It is not permissible for a member in practice to become financial advisor and receive fees commission from financial institutions. Whether a firm of chartered accountant can undertake the assignment of management consultant director simpliciter. Director simpliciter, I have explained you just now. Who is director simpliciter? Director simpliciter is a person who is a director, simply a director in a company, neither whole time nor managing director nor getting monthly remuneration like that. So yes, it is permissible for a firm of chartered accountants to undertake the assignment of a management consultancy services of a company where a partner of the firm is director simpliciter. Whether a member in practice is permitted to be an athlete or play tournaments simultaneously along with holding certificate of practice. Suppose I am holding certificate of practice and getting encouraged by the Olympics in Tokyo. I also start practicing athlete or play tournament. Can I do that? Since the activity of being an athlete or playing tournament is not covered under Appendix 9 of regulation, a member in practice may only be an amateur athlete. Means I'm not a professional practitioner. I'm not a professional athlete. However, it is not permissible for him to be a professional athlete. I may not be a professional athlete, but for the purpose of participating in athlete, I can do that. So the next question is whether a member of the institute can deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct when if he does not supply the information called for or does not comply with the requirements asked for by the institute. Suppose the institute is asking certain information, institute is asking certain information and certain requirements. So, and if I am not complying with, is it a professional misconduct? Yes, it is a professional misconduct according to class 2 of the first schedule. If he does not supply the information called for or does not comply with the requirement asked for by the institute. Practice disclose information required in the course of his professional engagement. Can a CA in practice disclose information acquired in the course of his professional engagement? The meaning thereby that I am engaged in one professional assignment, and in the course of professional assignment, I came to know or certain informations. So can I share those information or disclose those information? The answer is no. According to clause 1 of second schedule, a CA in practice shall not be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct. Sorry, CA in practice shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he discloses information acquired in the course of his professional engagement to any person other than his client. So who engage him without the consent of the client or otherwise then as required by law for the time being in force. So in nutshell, a chartered accountant practice who comes across any information which he has acquired in the course of professional engagement, he cannot share those information with anybody else except with the clients or with the permission of client to anybody else. Whether an auditor is required to provide to the client or to main auditor of the HO of the same enterprise access to his audit working paper. Whether an auditor is required to provide to the client or to main auditor. Means suppose one is branch auditors, another person is main auditor, statutory auditor of the head office. The same enterprise can allow the access of his working paper. No. Working papers are the property of an auditor. Not required to provide the client access to his audit working papers. The main auditor of an enterprise do not have right to access to the audit working paper of the branch auditor. The auditor may, at his discretion, in cases considered appropriate by him, make portions of or extracts from his working paper available to the client, but not as a whole. So he cannot give the whole of the documents, whole of the working paper even to his client. Whether joint auditors can demand the working paper of one another. There are two joint auditors, A and B of the same organization. Can A ask B the working papers and vice versa? The answer is no. The working paper are the property of the auditor. Therefore, no joint auditor can demand the working paper of the other auditor. If he is asking for that or forcing the other auditor to provide those papers, he will be guilty of professional misconduct. Whether joint auditors will be responsible for the work done by other joint auditor. Suppose A and B are two joint auditors of a particular firm. So can the work done by A, B will be responsible, or whether work done by B, A is responsible? The council direction under paragraph 2, part 1 of the second schedule to the Act prescribes that in respect of audit work divided among the joint auditors, each joint auditor is responsible only for the work allocated to him, including proper execution of the audit procedure. However, on the other hand, all the joint auditors are jointly and severally responsible for the work which is not inter se divided amongst the auditors. So in the one way, they are jointly responsible, and another way, they are not jointly responsible. Whether the CA who is appointed as liquidator, whether a CA who is appointed and liquidator of a company can do the audit of that company. The answer is no. Clause 4 of the second schedule speaks that they cannot. Whether a chartered accountant will be guilty of professional misconduct if he accepts the auditorship of a college, if he is working as a part-time lecturer in that college, and accepts the auditorship of a trust where his partner is either an employee or a trustee of the trust. So whether can accept or whether he will be guilty of professional misconduct. The answer is yes. CA will be guilty of professional misconduct in both the above referred circumstances. What are both the two circumstances? One is that accepts the auditorship of college, And second one is accept the auditorship of the trust. Can the chartered accountant accept the assignment of an audit of a company in which he is director? Can a chartered accountant accept the assignment of audit of a company in which he is a director? The answer is no. In cases where the member is director of a company, the financial statements of which are to be audited or opinion is to be expressed, he should not undertake such job or express opinion on the financial statement of that company. Whether a member can accept audit of a company where the relative of the member is a director in that company, a relative of member, director in the company. No, since a member is not eligible for appointment as an auditor of a company as per section 141 or 13, if his relative is a director or is in the employment of the company as a director. Whether the fees received from limited review quarterly audit of the same undertaking company under the listing regulations should be included in the fees received for carrying out the statutory auditor of the same undertaking, while comparing the same with fees from permissible non-audit services. So the answer is exemption to the general rule audit under any other statute. The limited or quarterly review should not be included in the same, as these are done in the same statute. Hence, limited review or quarterly audit may be deemed to be included in statutory audit. And the last question of this presentation, whether fee from professional services rendered for the issuance of accountant's report under Income Tax Act 1961, that is 3CEB report, should be considered under exemption provided in paragraph 9 of the council guideline, considering that such services are of nature of assurance services. So the question is a little bit lengthy. Let me repeat it. Whether fees from the professional services rendered for the issuance of accountant's report under Income Tax Act, that is 3CEB report, whether it should be considered exempted provided in paragraph 9.2. The answer is certification work required to be done by the statutory auditors is exempt from the general rule contained in chapter 9. Accordingly, the provisions of this chapter will not apply to a certification which can be done by a CN practice. So since time is approaching, and with the permission of Navinji, should I stop here or should go ahead?
So we can just have, if anybody has any question, then they can raise. Because I was having one, sir, with respect to putting up other qualifications in your visiting card. You have mentioned that the certificate courses which we do from institute are not permitted to be written. But if somebody is having a certificate from some other institute, for example, if he is having a post-qualification course from some university, whether those things can be added in a visiting card.
So according to the guideline and directions of the institute, certificate course, certificate course and certificate granted by any authority, whether CA institute or any other institute, cannot be a part of your visiting card. So it cannot be included, though it can be included where you are providing your full profile or your biodata, what CV, whatever you call, you can include all those, or wherever otherwise required to be mentioned, you can give it. But as a normal practice, it should not be included in the visiting card or letterheads. Otherwise, you can use it.
Right, sir. And so if you can elaborate with respect to HUF business, as you said that the practice should be avoided wherein a member in practice is also a karta of HUF. and HUF is deriving some income. So I think you mentioned that the practice should be avoided in getting income from HUF, right now?
No,
Or is
no.
it allowed?
Whatever income of HUF is there, that is the income of HUF. HUF is a separate entity from the members or karta of that HUF. Though the karta of HUF and HUF normally are the same person. Karta of HUF and uh, is the same person. I mean to say,
So the income derived by HUF won't be any hindrance in a member who is in practice. He don't need
yes,
to get any approval from the council.
no, whatever income of HUF is there, so that income is of HUF, not of member,
The professional member.
professional member. Well, that is a separate fees, and sorry, that is separate entity in the eyes of income tax and the constitution, separate entity. So whatever income arrived by HUF is the income of HUF and not of that karta. Suppose I do have HR Agarwal HUF and I am doing practice in the name of HR Agarwal and Associates, or I am having independent income of myself also. So whatever I am getting from HR Agarwal and Associates is in the capacity of partner of that firm, right? But income of HUF is not shared amongst the members or co-partners of the HUF. It is only at the time of partition of the HUF, the members of the HUF are getting any income or amount from HUF. Otherwise, they are not entitled to get anything from HUF.
So generally we find that there is a clause that if a member is in practice, he should be 100% dedicated to the practice service and he should not get involved into any other services.
Correct.
So if a person is having a business in HUF, then he is directly involved in day-to-day practice. So is it would be advisable that he appoints somebody for managing the business of the HUF and he does not sign papers or as a karta? He appoints somebody as an authorized signatory and he does the work, just to mitigate this full-time compliance with his professional work and the HUF work.
If involvement in HUF of a member in practice as a karta of HUF is minimum or occasional, he can do that. But if HUF is running a business, regular trading or any manufacturing unit, and a lot of time is required to be devoted to the business of HUF, and you cannot justify both the things, being a karta of HUF as well as partner or proprietor in a chartered accountant as a practice. So in that case, if you want to continue your partnership or a practice, you should keep yourself away as far as possible with the business of the HUF or involvement of the business. Otherwise, there will be a clash of interest and that will be a violation of the code of ethics.
Now, any member, if have any questions, they can raise.
So in the chat box, there is no question.
No, sir. In the chat box, there is no question.
So we can conclude the session, I think.
Okay. Since there is no more questions, I would say every member who is in practice should once or in 6 months or a year time should always try to go through the code of ethics. I think its journal is also available in the resource desk of our website. Few changes are also being made in the code of ethics. So to comply with all those things and wherever necessary, we can seek guidance from the members who are into practice, as well as from the institute also. I think there is some provisions where the member can ask the institute if he has any clarification or requires any clarification with respect to any code of ethics, sir.
Yeah, there is a ethical standard board and esb@ici.in. That is the email ID of ethical standard board, and there is full team headed by one secretary with two assistant to that and two juniors to that. That is a team of 4-5 persons. So if there is any, so we can directly mail it to esb@ici.in, and we hope that you will be getting the answer. Or alternatively, whosoever our CM member, CCM is chairman of that ethical standard board, you can directly ask him or write him to us. So he will get it resolved either directly by himself or through the team under ethical standard board.
Right, sir.
Because the time when I was a member in ethical standard board, there used to be ethical standard board meeting right from 10:30 in the morning to 7:30, 8, and so many discussions and so many queries which were used to come, and the secretary was not able to answer them directly, or there were some tricky problem or some dicey answer. So all those questions were put in that meeting, and those answers were decided by these members of that committee, and secretary used to communicate all those answers to respective members. And sometimes it was uncommon type of queries, then it was summarized and put before the council for their approval also. After that, member is used to get the answer. So that was the mechanism of the whole of the ethical standard.
Thank you, sir, for that informative knowledge sharing. I think that email ID will be very important for the members, because during practice we find that we come forward to something where a clarification is required, where we are not clear actually what the ethics wants to say and what the practical things has to be done. So that email ID can be used to get the clarification. It's my honor, sir, to sum up the things you have taken the things in FAQ manner. I think it was well defined. To my knowledge, sir, when you were saying I was wrong a few points where I think it was yes and then the answer was no. Similarly, where I thought it was no, it was an yes. So still, I think there are a lot of things which will be coming forward once we go through this type of sessions. The doubts will be getting cleared. Because sometimes we feel that it is allowed as per ethics, but generally we find that it is not there. So I urge all the members to go through the ethics and view the recording so that they can verify the ethics again. And I thanks a lot to Hariramji for sparing the time and making enlightened us with the code of ethics, which is required in our practice. I thank you, sir, on behalf of Views Exchange and on behalf of all the participants attending today. A very heartful thanks to you for sparing time and enlightening us. We also wish you a very a great success ahead in serving our profession and in the coming elections also. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Navinji, for giving me an opportunity to express myself and enlighten the members also. And as per hint, we have been given that from midnight of 31st, there will be code of elections will be announced, and from 1st till the declaration of result, we won't be seeing each other on the platform which we are meeting today, meaning thereby that we won't be able to take sessions from 1st of September till the declaration of result, which will be at the end of December something. So, and in the meantime, I will be in touch with all of you one way or the other, in other physical mode, or I'll be as an attendee to the program, I'll be there, or maybe that I will try to meet most of you physically over the phone. And thank you in my endeavor, and bless me. And all of the participants, I request all of you to please bless me in the forthcoming election, so that the way I have served for last 2.5 years in the council and for more than 15 years outside the council, I may continue as serving in a better way. Thank you, sir, with all your blessings.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.